On today's show, Houston Rockets players-only minicamp footage. Let's overreact because it's the offseason. Who looked the best from the minicamp scrimmage? Plus, NBA Twitter top 25 under 25 poll. Which Houston Rockets made the cut? It's all coming up on today's Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Mondays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. That's the best way that you can help our show out, is to comment anything below the video. Just do a drive-by and say, go Rockets. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. And as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you for being an everydayer. I am excited to be back in the saddle here at the show. It's been a little while since I've recorded. If you're watching on YouTube, the background looks a little different. I have since moved houses, so in a brand new environment here. Still got to set up the rest of the studio wall and figure out what's going to go where. I had COVID since the last time that we recorded. The last episode that I actually recorded was the reaction to the schedule release with Ben Dubose, one of our weekly co-hosts here. And I was pretty sick going into that episode with COVID, and I have just been sidelined ever since then. I went and had to do like a chest x-ray to make sure I didn't have pneumonia. It has been a lot, but I am so excited to be back here now. I'm late to talking about the Houston Rockets minicamp footage because I spent all of the last week and a half or so just moving and dying, and it's been brutal. But we're here and we're going to talk about it because it's the offseason, and it's the offseason, which means we're going to get unreasonably hype about it. We're going to overreact to some of this minicamp footage, courtesy of Swish Cultures on social media. There were a lot of Rockets that took part in this minicamp. So if you'll remember, we talked about this, we teased it up. Jalen Green put together a Houston Rockets players only minicamp. A lot of players were present for that. We're going to discuss kind of what we saw out of certain guys, who looked the best, all this stuff. And then we're also going to get into, a little bit later on in the episode, the NBA Twitter top 25 under 25 poll, which Houston Rockets qualified on that poll. So we'll kind of take a look at that list, as well as I've got a fun little kind of, mini game for us to, keep ourselves entertained throughout the dog days of the NBA offseason. So we're going to get to that a little bit later on in the episode as well. Something interactive for us to do together as we navigate this next about month or so of the NBA offseason until we get to media day and training camp and all that good stuff for the Houston Rockets. So let's start with the minicamp stuff. So again, Jalen Green hosted a players only minicamp in Los Angeles about a week ago. And it was optional, it wasn't mandatory, but a lot of Houston Rockets, a lot of different players on the roster participated in the minicamp. The main players that we are going to be concerned with in this minicamp participation are 6 of the 7 young core. So the only member of the young core that did not participate, it appears, was Tari Eason. Either he flat out just didn't participate, or there just weren't enough highlight clips of him to kind of make the final cut for the different little highlight videos that Swish Cultures ultimately posted on social media. However, we do know that Tari Eason was actually on, as part of a basketball outreach program with his mom in Jamaica. And so he was doing that. So that might have kind of interrupted his ability to attend the players only minicamp. However, Cam Whitmore was also with Tari Eason in Jamaica, and Cam Whitmore made it back in time for the minicamp. So who knows what ultimately happened. But we're going to focus on the 6 guys not named Tari Eason of the Houston Rockets core. Aaron Holiday and Jae'Sean Tate were also in attendance. It also kind of looked like maybe some other guys were there. Maybe it might have been Nate Hinton. It might have been Nefali Dante. There were some other, Rockets adjacent guys or guys on the roster, but we're a little bit less concerned with those guys. We're going to focus on the main guys here. So let's start with The man of the hour himself, Jalen Green, who, again, I want to give a lot of credit to Jalen Green for orchestrating this players only minicamp, right? Like, this is a sign of growth. It's a sign of leadership from Jalen Green. Last year did a lot for him in terms of him being able to see firsthand and learn firsthand from stable quality veterans in Fred VanVleet and Dillon Brooks. And it looks like some of that leadership has kind of rubbed off on him to where he said, you know what? All right, let me put this together for my guys. The Rockets also did, like, I can't even remember the watch brand name, some luxury brand that Jalen is partnered with, and he had the whole team out there and they all got new watches, and it was, a cool little event for them to take part in. So not only were they out in LA for that event, but also for the players only mini camp. So just kind of a cool leadership position for Jalen Green to be in as one of the leaders of this team. So I want to give him some props for setting this whole thing up. But as it gets to the actual basketball and kind of what we saw on the floor from Jalen Green, saw a lot of good stuff in about, 70 seconds worth of footage out of him. He had some really impressive drives to the basket, some tough finishes around the rim, absorbing contact. I think the most impressive thing that he did do was a tough he had this driving, contested, one-handed, falling away, like, jumper over the top of Amen Thompson, who we've already established, is the Rockets' best defender on the roster. So the degree of difficulty on that shot from Jalen Green was nothing short of impressive. Seeing him do that, he also had a really nice, kind of drive past Jabari on the left side of the floor, where he then went up and finished with his right hand, kind of a little corkscrew kind of layup on the left side of the glass. That was kind of impressive. Again, he finished through a lot of different contact. He knocked down some open threes. We saw the kind of workout video from Jalen a few weeks back where he was working on his timing and his balance, specifically on his catch and shoot opportunities. And it looked like he was taking that little extra, kind of half second, half beat before pulling the trigger on his three ball in some of these clips. And again, they're highlight clips. You're not going to post the misses. You're not going to post the bad stuff. So you take it with a grain of salt. But the shooting stroke looked good. The form looked solid, and it looked consistent in all of his catch and shoot opportunities that we saw in this short little video. So I'll leave a link to the article that Ben wrote over at Rockets Wire that has all the videos kind of compiled in one place. If you missed out on any of this footage, it'll be in the episode description, so you can go take a look at what we're talking about. Coming up, want to get into the other guys, though, that we saw taking place during the Rockets players-only minicamp scrimmage. Reed Shepherd, Jabari Smith Jr., Amen Thompson, Alperen Sengun, Cam Whitmore. Going to get to those guys, as well as the NBA Twitter Top 25 Under-25 poll and our little off-season game that we're going to have going on. We're going to get to all of that here in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time, because look, Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals and great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching throughout just thousands of tickets, right? And that's not the only feature that Game Time has available. They've got seat view, so you know exactly where you're going to be sitting, what kind of view you've got at the venue. They've got their lowest price guarantee, Game Time ticket coverage, and my personal favorite, they're all-in pricing. This is a feature that you can turn on with Game Time to show you the price up front throughout the entire process, so you're not surprised when you get to the very end. And look, my least favorite thing when I'm buying tickets somewhere else, any other ticket selling websites, is you go through the process and at the very end, they hit you with the digital handling fees and the service charges and all these fees, and you end up paying more in fees than you do for the actual tickets to go to the event that you want to go to, right? It's ridiculous. That doesn't happen with Game Time. You just turn on the all-in pricing toggle so you know exactly how much you're paying from start to finish, fully transparent. So take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, we're going to get to some more of the notes that I have taken for us on the rest of the Rockets core members as part of their players-only minicamp footage that we've seen via social media. But one bigger kind of important takeaway that I have here that I should have shared in segment one, and kind of burying the lead here, but it's just like this opportunity, right, for these players to get to know each other as teammates, as basketball players, as people, as individuals is invaluable, right? Chemistry is not something that you can easily quantify, but it's a very real element. It's a very real factor to consider when you look at the success of certain teams throughout the NBA landscape. Teams that have better chemistry, teams that get along better, teams that are more cohesive or have played together longer tend to have more advantages over teams that don't, right? So even though it's very small in the grand scheme of things, these guys getting together for, a handful of days for a players only mini camp out in LA. It might not seem like much, but at the end of the day, it's a great opportunity for all these guys to play together for the first time, right? For Reed Sheppard to get in the gym and play alongside Jalen Green and Amin Thompson. Obviously Reed and Cam Whitmore and AJ Griffin started establishing their chemistry at Las Vegas Summer League, but that's, a completely different level of competition and expectations. This is a closed gym environment where these guys can just let their guard down, be themselves, and get to know one another. Again, not only as basketball players, but as human beings, as individuals, and start building that chemistry. So I think this is a really important experience for that alone, not just the basketball stuff. So wanted to highlight that there before getting into the rest of these notes here. Up next, we got Reed Sheppard, who was absolutely knocking down all kinds of open shots in the clips that we saw from him. If he got even a little bit of separation, he was letting it fly. I'm sure that Ime Udoka and I'm sure all his teammates are telling him, look, if they give you space, you're shooting the ball, period. Done. It was great to see him knock down a bunch of shots. He was playing on the same team as Amin Thompson in the highlights that we saw. It very much looked like the Rockets kind of had some, A team, B team stuff going on. Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun were definitely teammates. The Rockets definitely had Reed Sheppard, Cam Whitmore, Amin Thompson, and Jabari Smith Jr. on one side of the court together. It looked like AJ Griffin was playing with the A team with Jalen Green and pardon me, and Alperen Sengun for stretches. I couldn't quite piece together who was on what teams. I'm sure they mixed things up a little bit, but for the most part, it kind of looked like Reed Sheppard and Amin Thompson were partnered with one another, which makes sense because that's a lot of what we're going to see this upcoming season is those two guys sharing some minutes together in that second unit. We also, again, saw Cam Whitmore out there with those two, and that's going to be another piece of the puzzle for the Houston Rockets. Those three guys in particular, I'm incredibly excited about seeing kind of storm the court this next season. The Rockets are going to have a really electric second unit to keep teams running and to really gas out their opponents this upcoming season. So those guys are going to be putting in a lot of work. He had a moment where he blocked Aaron Holiday flat out on a drive. So, Aaron Holiday, one of the few guys on this team that is actually shorter than Reed Sheppard. And then one other thing that I noted from Reed is he absolutely loves that cross-court pass, right, where he starts driving to one side of the court and then loves to just whip it across to the weak side corner. We saw him attempt it quite often in Summer League, and he telegraphed it at times, but he loves just, flipping the ball back to the other side, especially when there's a wide-open shooter in the corner, and that's great recognition, right, reading the defense. If it's tilted towards you on the strong side of the court, just cross-court pass straight to the weak side corner, and then that player either gets a wide open three-point shot or they get to attack a defender who's closing out on them hard at the three-point line, and they can keep the defense in rotation. So it's great recognition, great playmaking from Reed Sheppard there. Jabari Smith Jr. in these highlights arguably had the best highlight of the bunch. I'm so sorry. He did Alperen Sengun absolutely dirty. He hit him with a drive, a stop, and a pop where Sengun just did the splits mid-court. I'm talking Sengun did the splits and then went down. He bowed, like he was trying to touch his toes or something in front of Jabari, who just elevated from middle of, we're just outside of the box, I guess, kind of lower baseline area. Super easy jumper for Jabari. Absolutely filthy move. Jabari looks a little bit more comfortable, I will say, with his handle. A little bit stronger, a little bit more sure of himself, lower to the ground. He was absorbing contact on some of his drives and finishing through that contact, which is an encouraging sign for Jabari. Again, he's never going to have to be the flashiest ball handler, but if he can just be an effective ball handler, it opens up so much for him. And again, his willingness, his comfortability, putting the ball on the floor and then being able to elevate and get to his shot, which is basically unguardable by like 99% of the NBA. His offensive ceiling is still sky high if he can really tap into that. So that was some exciting stuff to see out of him. Amin Thompson had some defensive highlights in there. Of course, he had some defensive highlights. He had a poke check on Jalen Green that led to a breakaway dunk. He also had the same thing again later on Aaron Holiday, another poke check that leads to an easy breakaway slam. He had this one move that looked LeBron James-esque. That's all I can say. He basically had like a hezzy dribble into a drive where then he spun. He got to about, 15 feet out and then spun into a layup right there at the rim. And with as big and strong and as fast as Amin Thompson is and as explosively athletic as he is, all I could think of when I saw him hit that spin cycle and then elevate and he was right there at the cup to lay the ball in, I thought that's LeBron James light. Like, that's exactly what it looks like. And he kind of looked like that a little bit when Amin Thompson gets going downhill, which he did in a lot of these clips. We got to see Amin Thompson just freight train right down towards the paint. And, he had a couple shots where he was using some soft touch off the glass in and around the rim. That's really encouraging. That's promising stuff for Amin Thompson, because hear me when I say this, nobody can stay in front of Amin Thompson one-on-one. The only thing slowing him down right now is himself. He has to work on his handle. He's got to tighten that up a little bit, and he's got to become a little bit more kind of decisive about what he's doing when he starts getting downhill towards the rim, whether he's going to pass, whether he's going to finish, whether he's going to hit him with another move, break check him, whatever. But in these few clips, it looked like he was a lot more confident driving to the rim, and that confidence, as long as he's got the confidence going to the rim, he's going to be completely different this season attacking the basket than he was last year. And then one other note for Amin Thompson, he loves that one-handed whip pass, man. That's like his favorite thing. I remember asking him about it at training camp last season. Just, he loves when he can just do that little, like, either one-handed, it's almost like a hook shot, but he's passing it, or like the little kind of at his waist where he's just kind of casually dribbling the ball, and then boom, a one-handed little whip pass across the court to a cutter on the way to the rim. They can be a little chaotic. They can be a little sloppy if you're not right on the money, because if you're passing with one hand instead of two, you're not going to be quite as accurate. But at least the results on these ones were pretty positive. I think he connected with Jae'Sean Tate on a couple different cuts to the basket in this one. Alperen Sengun, look, not a whole lot to take away from this. There were no bigs that could actually guard Sengun in this players only minicamp run. Jabari Smith Jr. was matched up with Sengun, and Sengun was just abusing him down low, just backing him down. There was like a play where Reed Shepherd got switched onto Sengun, and he had to call for the double team. And I will say there was one moment where Sengun did have a pretty clean dime to Jalen Green, where Jalen had dumped the ball down to Al P, and it was a quick little give and go. So Jalen drops it down to Al P. Jalen cuts immediately. Al P recognizes it and just lofts the ball right over the top. Jalen catches it and is able to elevate for an easy two at the rim. That's that kind of two-man game, that little give and go action that hopefully we see develop more between those two, because again, with Jalen's insane athleticism and his ability to move off the ball, and Alperen Sengun's passing ability, those two should be able to connect on a lot more opportunities like that this upcoming season. Last guy on the list we got is Cam Whitmore, knocking down a lot of catch and shoot three-point opportunities, and so picking up exactly where he left off last season. Had some really strong drives to the rim, and he finished things off. He had a passing lane steal where he was just playing the passing lane, kind of shot the gap on a pass where Jalen was trying to get it to Alperen Sengun, kind of around the top of the key area. Cam Whitmore shoots the gap, gets the steal, goes the other way. Easy breakaway bucket. Simple stuff from Cam Whitmore, but still really exciting. So in all these clips, I think that personally for me, the guy that I was most excited about was Amin Thompson. Just again, seeing his effectiveness on defense, seeing how he sticks to guys when he is playing defense, the disruptiveness that he provides, and then just seeing how much more confident he looked offensively, how much more decisive he looked. Again, these are just very short highlight reel clips from, a closed gym run. There's not a whole lot to take away from this, which is why we're overreacting to it, because it's the dog days of the offseason. But I really liked what I saw out of him in Thompson, right? If he can bring even a fraction of that to this upcoming season, then things are going to look a lot different for him and a lot better for him, especially on the offensive end, just for himself, right? Scoring at the rim, being a little bit more effective at creating his own shot, right? Driving, collapsing a defense, all those different things. So I'm curious who you were most excited by. Again, if you haven't seen the clips, they're going to be in the episode description. Go click on the link there to go watch them. But who were you most excited by from the Rockets players only minicamp highlight footage? Let me know in the YouTube comments. Coming up, I want to get into the NBA Twitter top 25 under 25 poll. Were the Rockets done justice, or were they disrespected a little bit in the poll, as well as our fun little offseason mini game? We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Look, you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little bit different for you this time around. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5, that's $5 only, and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. This is a great offer to take advantage of, and while you're there at FanDuel.com to take advantage of this offer, right, take a look at all the different odds for this upcoming NBA season. You can take a look at the outright betting favorites to win the title this upcoming season. The Celtics still favorites to repeat at plus 300. You got the OKC Thunder behind them at plus 700. The Denver Nuggets at plus 900, alongside the Philadelphia 76ers and the New York Knicks, all three of them plus 900. So for all those odds and so much more, and to take advantage of this incredible offer, just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Let's get into the NBA Twitter top 25 under 25 poll conducted by Josh Eberly, who can track down on Twitter at Josh Eberly. Now, this poll had about over 60,000 votes included in it, and the Rockets were actually pretty well represented in the top 25. Alperen Sengun clocked in at number 11 on the list. Amin Thompson clocked in at number 19, and then Jabari Smith Jr. landed just on the edge at number 25. So taking a look at the list in its entirety, I feel pretty good about like the top 4 or 5 names on this list. In order, starting at number 1 goes Victor Wembanyama, then Anthony Edwards, then Paolo Banchero, then Zion Williamson for your top 4 names on the top 25 under 25 list. Now, some of the names that aged out of this list, Luka, Jaren Jackson Jr., those guys all hit 25, so, no longer on the list. I will say that you can make arguments about the order of those 4 names at the top of the list, because Zion, when healthy, is absolutely an all-NBA caliber talent. He might arguably be number 2 on the list, even ahead of Anthony Edwards. I feel like Wemby, you got to put number 1. The dude is going to be getting DPOY consideration in year 2 of his career. Feels terrible to have to admit that, but yeah, so Wemby at number 1 feels fair, even though he hasn't accomplished as much as Anthony Edwards yet. I don't know how I feel about Paolo Banchero over Zion. I don't think that's right, and I don't think Ant over Zion is right either. Zion just has the health issues. Where I do take exception on this list is they have Tyrese Haliburton all the way down at number 9. I feel like that is complete recency bias based on kind of the down half of a season that he had. He played through injury, the hamstring situation, all that. Tyrese Haliburton should be top 5 on this list. I don't like him locked in at number 9. I feel like that's really disrespectful to him. He was top 5 on last year's NBA Twitter result, so for 2023, but he dropped 5 spots all the way down to number 9. Now, some of these other names in this next tier after that top 5, Evan Mobley, who is 5th on this list, I don't think he should be top 5. So Evan Mobley, Chet Holmgren, Cade Cunningham, Tyrese Maxey, Tyrese Haliburton at number 9, and then Darius Garland. So those are the 5 names ahead of Alperen Sengun on this list. I feel like you can make pretty convincing arguments that Alperen Sengun should be ahead of almost any one of those names on that list. I feel like you can make a convincing argument for Alp ahead of Evan Mobley, for Alp ahead of Chet Holmgren, for Alp ahead of Cade Cunningham, Tyrese Maxey, and Darius Garland. The only name on that list that I will not argue that you can make an argument for Alperen Sengun to be ahead of is Tyrese Halliburton. Again, I think that was a lot of disrespect towards Tyrese Halliburton. He is an all-NBA caliber guard. He's incredibly talented. He's an offensive engine by himself, one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA. I can go on and on and on about Tyrese Halliburton. But the other names on that list, absolutely. And I think a lot of it has to do with team success. The Cavaliers have had more team success with Evan Mobley, Chet Holmgren, same thing, Tyrese Maxey, again, the Cavaliers with Darius Garland. The only name on that list that doesn't have more team success than Sengun is Cade Cunningham. Now, Cade Cunningham does have the counting stats. The numbers look great. The efficiency doesn't look great. And here's my argument against Cade Cunningham. Look, I like Cade. I like Cade a lot as a player. I think he's got an incredibly bright future. I think he's incredibly talented. But at the end of the day, at some point, if you are the franchise player, if you're the franchise cornerstone, if you're the face of a franchise, all that, you got to be able to elevate your team to some wins. And I know that the Pistons have been an absolute dumpster fire, and that has been a really abysmal situation. But at what point, like at some point, Cade's play has to elevate his team to some wins, right? Because right now it's not doing that. And I'm not saying that Cade is not a winning player. I'm not saying he's, empty stats, calorie, whatever, empty calorie type player. I'm not going to go so far as to say that yet, because the Pistons have been a very dysfunctional organization through Cade's first few seasons. But I will say that, at some point, you got to get some tangible results. I'm not expecting Cade to carry the Pistons to 30, 40 wins by himself. But at some point, if you're the best player, you should be able to dictate and control the flow of a game and be able to put your team on your back and win some games, especially in a weak Eastern Conference. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm going to argue. And I feel like Alperen Sengun has shown that he can carry his team to some wins, and Cade hasn't shown that enough yet in his career. So I'm just pointing that out there. Elsewhere on this list, Amin Thompson at number 19 feels pretty good. I feel like maybe there's some names on this list that, I don't know. I'm not even going to go so far as to say Amin Thompson should be ahead of any of these other names. These are much more established players on this list. And so Amin Thompson to even get that recognition to be considered a top 20 under 25 player by NBA fans shows just how impressive he was in his rookie season to, again, kind of the casual NBA audience. Although I'm sure that the people participating in this poll are not necessarily casual NBA fans. These are more so your diehards who are the sickos who are plugged in on NBA Twitter every day of the offseason, even though there's not much going on. So these are the diehards, I should say. And then Jabari Smith Jr. at 25, just barely making the cutoff. Ahead of Jabari Smith Jr. had guys like Derek Lively, Jalen Suggs, Jalen Johnson, Jaden McDaniels, Devin Vassell. Those were the names in between Jabari and Amin. Just ahead of Amin Thompson, Keegan Murray, Trey Murphy III, Franz Wagner, who went down a spot from last year, LaMelo Ball, who went up one spot from last year, Brandon Miller at 14 on the list, Scotty Barnes at 13, and then Jalen Williams at 12. Overall, I feel like this is a pretty comprehensive list. I will say the one name of the Houston Rockets that didn't make the cut, that many felt probably should have made the cut, is Jalen Green, who apparently clocked in at 34th on the list. So I don't know where the other names are. This was just Josh Eberly hit me in a reply to say that Jalen Green clocked in at 34th. I don't know the other 9 names in between Jabari and Jalen all the way at 34. But what I will say is that the takeaway from this and from Jalen Green not even making it into the top 25 of the under 25 poll kind of showcases that even though he had a really impressive, month of March and he was really dominant in that stretch, in the eyes of, these 60,000 some odd NBA fans, he hasn't done enough to elevate him to that top 25 level as it stands with his peers, right? On a consistency basis. Because for the better part of a good chunk of last season, Jalen Green was not one of the better players in the association, right? He really struggled through his campaign last year. So I think what it shows is that Jalen Green right now is kind of being counted out by NBA fans. He's being viewed not so much as a foundational piece, as a building block for an organization. He's being viewed as a guy that is now being pushed further down the list of young players. The fact that, look, Devin Vassell made the list ahead of Jalen Green, right? That should add plenty of fuel to the fire, right? Devin Vassell, it does not have anywhere near the ceiling or the upside that Jalen Green has, but Devin Vassell's been a more consistent player at this point throughout his NBA career, right? He's a more efficient player. He's a better outside shooter currently. Jalen Green has all the superstar potential and upside in the world, but the consistency has been the biggest battle for Jalen Green. And again, that's going to be the message all season long is, can Jalen Green be consistent this upcoming year? If you can even get Jalen Green to be 70% of what he was in the month of March over the course of an entire 82-game season, he's immediately, I don't know, top 10 on this list, top 15 easily, because that level of production, if applied consistently from game 1 to game 82, will completely rehabilitate his image in the eyes of not only Rockets fans who are a little bit more down on Jalen, but also NBA fans who seemingly have kind of, I don't want to say given up, but have, again, pushed him further down the totem pole compared to some of his other peers. So those are the takes on the NBA Twitter Top 25 Under 25 poll. I'm curious your thoughts. Do you feel like the Rockets were represented fairly? Do you feel like it was disrespectful to not include Jalen Green in the top 25? Let me know your thoughts in those YouTube comments. But our final little thing here, I've seen this template floating around for, fan bases, organizations, all this stuff. And it's a list of kind of how you classify certain players in franchise history. And so it goes in order. You've got the most underrated player, the most overrated player, the best player, the worst player, the funniest player, the most annoying player, all these different categories. There's 16 total categories. It's this little picture. I've got it on my phone. It's not even showing up on the camera. This is terrible production value. There it is. Wow, that autofocus was really crazy on the camera just now on YouTube. Anyways, I'm going to post this to the YouTube channel with the first prompt being, who is the most underrated player in Houston Rockets history? What I want you to do, my wonderful listeners, is to comment a name, look through the list. Ideally, we don't have multiple names on there. So if somebody's already commented the name that you have in mind, just go like that name. Whichever name gets the most likes, I will plug in on the list, and we're going to fill out this 16 boxes? Yeah. We're going to fill out this list over the course of the rest of the offseason, and we'll have our Locked On Rockets, Houston Rockets all-time list. There we go. That's what we'll call it. We'll have a lot of fun with it, so I'm going to drop it in the YouTube kind of community section or whatever. It'll be a simple little picture. Go comment a name that you think should be the most underrated, or whoever is the most underrated Houston Rocket all-time. If you see the name there, just like it. Whichever name has the most likes in, I don't know, we'll say 24 hours, 48 hours, I'll give it a day or two, and then that'll be the name that wins, and then we'll move on to the next category, and I'll keep us up to date with that here in the shows. It won't be every show that we talk about it, but in the shows that we do bring it up, I'll make sure to post it, and then we can kind of have that as an ongoing activity throughout the rest of the offseason. But that's going to do it for today's episode. As always, thank you so much for checking out the show. If you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets, like, comment, subscribe. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify, or if you're listening there. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. We look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.